Good evening, everybody. Rick Yocklin here with Dying a Detroit Lions fan. Really wanted to come to you last night, but just didn't feel up to it. Been working on the Spartan Cave, which is actually my garage, where I hope to be broadcasting both podcast and video casts in the future as the weather gets nice. Welcome to VideoCast number 5 and podcast number 6 of the series. I want to talk about a couple things that have been happening in the current news, and really disappointed that I did not follow through last night in regards to the passing away of a Detroit legend. Also, I've got my take on the Lions being overpassed or looked beyond, thank God, for Hard Knocks. A little bit about the NFL draft, and also I'm going to start taking applications for people that are interested in fantasy football in the hopes that we're still going to have fantasy football come fall. So let's get back to the main thing. Oh, in addition, I'm trying to do this again, recording both the podcast and the video cast at the same time. So bear with me when we have a little pause in the podcast, and we'll get back to it at that point. But let me start that yesterday afternoon, I was working in the Spartan Lounge, Spartan Den, and heard the news that Al Kaline, Hall of Famer from the Detroit Tigers, had passed away. Man, tons of memories came back to me in regards to that. One of the first ones being that 1968, the World Series. I'm in junior high school at Emerson Junior High in Flint, Michigan, of all places. And I turned around and was lucky enough that I ended up having a math teacher who was also sort of like the gym teacher, if you know what I mean, going back to like grade school. When someone needed their ass whipped, he's the one that did it. But he was a badass, but yet he was a sports fan, through and through. So our math class during the week of the playoffs, or that World Series, I should say, turned out to be that we ended up having time where his class, he brought in a black and white old TV that had the rabbit ear antennas, or whatever the case may be. May have been a little bit of snow, but it was wonderful to be able to be in class and actually watch a World Series game. At that time, World Series games were still played during the day, which has long gone because of television advertising, but it was exciting with that. And I do remember Al Kaline being a Detroit Tiger personality and star, Hall of Famer, of course. But saddened me greatly the fact that at least the Detroit Tigers have won a World Series and have given us some joy in regards to sports lore in the Detroit history, or the Detroit makeup, along with the Red Wings and Pistons for that matter. The only team that has, of course, lacked is our lovely Detroit Lions. Speaking of the lovely Detroit Lions, it was announced yesterday, or early this morning, one of the two. I can't remember if I saw it last night or this morning, first thing. But Hard Knocks has decided to take the LA teams, both the Rams and Chargers, and if there is a preseason this year and training camp, they're going to turn around and do a double episode, basically, or per episode, in regards to Hard Knocks, featuring those two teams. One of the best comments was somebody in the Detroit media, I don't remember which reporter, I should have written that down, but said that Lions lucked out again by being left off Hard Knocks. Well, let me begin with saying, why in the hell would the producers of Hard Knocks want the Detroit Lions on there anyways? You've got an inept, unqualified general manager, an absolute piece of shit coach, and Matt Patricia, what would they have to offer? I mean, they're tanking. They're going to ruin this team this year. I don't see any chance of them doing anything halfway decent. And what are you going to do? I mean, isn't it bad enough that we're already a laughing stock in the NFL because Mrs. Ford owns the team and the Fords have had the franchise for 61 years? What the fuck? Do we really need to be on national television to let everybody know just how inept this goddamn franchise has been for 61 years? So I'm actually tickled to death that the Lions won't be on it. Although I do like Hard Knocks from time to time, and I like the back scenes that they show. But of course, I don't see any reason that anybody would want to watch anything about the train wreck, which is the Detroit Lions. Some of you loyal diehards out there, I know, probably would love to see them. But personally, I can't stomach the embarrassment of being a Michigan resident and having friends throughout the country that laugh all the time about how inept this team is. So I'm happy they're gone. Or that's not going to be part of the program anyways. You know that you're always invited to message me in regards to anything that I say. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I am a huge Lions fan, but I'm a realist and I'm going to call shots the way I see them. And some of them are going to be explicit, so just hold on to your seatbelt. But you're always welcome to message me, tell me if I'm wrong, agree with me, ask me questions, give me some suggestion about something to talk about on a future VideoCast or podcast, and we'll go through with that. Let's get to, now, let's take a really quick break when it comes down to the podcast end of this, and then I'll be back and we'll continue going on that. I'm still on the iTunes, the YouTube channel. I'm just waiting for that to process for a moment, and I'm going to click back into it now, and we'll start back with the podcast. And for the podcast listeners, welcome back. Rick Acklin here with Dying a Detroit Lions Fan. You're into part 2 of the episode, and I wanted to talk about fantasy football. I don't know how many people out there are fantasy football fanatics, but I am one. And I think I mentioned in previous podcast that I have managed or commissioned or whatever you want to call it, a number of leagues, up to 15 last year. Starting this podcast as well as the VideoCast, I want to designate leagues this year that are strictly Dying a Detroit Lions Fan League. Depending on the number of people we have that are interested in playing, I can see it being league number 1 or A, B, C, whatever the case may be. So if you're interested in being involved in a fantasy league, take the opportunity to, if you're on the podcast, go into the episode summary, and it'll have all of my contact information there. And I would suggest that you send me an email. Give me your name, your email address, of course. I'd love it if you give me your phone number. I understand privacy that way, but I will reach out to you by email, and hopefully you'll exchange then, knowing that I'm not a creep. And your level of participation in fantasy football before. Ultimately, I would love to turn around and have multiple teams with the same name, but we'll classify them champions, I don't know, moderate players, maybe newbies even, okay, so that everybody has a chance to play, and you're not going to be overmatched by having somebody there that maybe is an experienced fantasy manager. So that's that. On YouTube, all you have to do is leave me your message, or leave a message at the bottom of the podcast. You'll see messaging. I understand phone numbers out of the question there because it could be seen by numbers of people. So if you would just send me your name and email address, or even better yet, tell me you're interested in your name, go into the show notes, and I'll make sure that my email address is publicized there, and you can write me a private email on that account. If you do, again, include your name, your email address, of course, which I'll have, but also your level of experience with fantasy football. My fantasy leagues that I do are a little bit different than the traditional preset leagues by the NFL, Yahoo, or ESPN. I have complete different rules in our leagues. They're very expanded, let's put it that way. I'll give you an idea as I roll through this. All of my leagues are 12-team leagues split in 3 divisions, meaning the fact that you will play division opponents twice and all other teams once. So we will play a 14-game season. Playoffs will be weeks 15, 16, and 17. Now, I don't know what's going to transpire next year, but this year they're still only going to have a 16-game season. We're not going to add that 17th game until 2021. So that'll all work the way it is. Our leagues are very customized. I do a customized schedule to make sure that the division teams play each other twice and all other teams once. Our roster size is different. Our roster size is going to be approximately 25 players, I think is what I did last year, and it worked out pretty good. Also, our starting lineups are going to be different from what you're normally seeing in any other league, because we are going to have some extra starters in your leagues, or in the leagues I propose. Besides our running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, we're going to have another player that can be inserted that can be either a running back, tight end, or wide receiver. And then we have one more, which makes it very, very interesting, is we have a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end. It's not unusual with the scoring that we have in our league, which is very, very high. For example, quarterbacks get 1 point per yard, not 1 point for every 10 or 25. Running backs, wide receivers, 1 point per yard, not for every 10. So scores can be very high. I have had teams in prior leagues over the years have scored over 3,000 points in a given weekend. So it's very competitive, and you need to be on your P's and Q's. If you're going to play in a league in my format, you have to be active. If you're not active, you screw everybody in the whole league. So consider that if you want to play in one of these leagues. I can guarantee you that I do not like the ESPN league format, and I do not like the platform there because there's certain things I can't change. I don't know if it's just their system or whatever the case may be. It's great to have a custom league there, but I can't do everything that I can do with the NFL.com website, and that's probably where I'll lean. But maybe a Yahoo one too, because Yahoo I can pretty well customize it. It seems like they're like a day behind when it comes down to updating all the scores. I mean, they were better last year, but NFL Network or NFL.com generally gives you real time all the time. So that's that. Oh, also, the big thing is, I do not like to draft early. I will not make our leagues draft until after final cuts are done, and that is usually Labor Day weekend. I say usually because that's the way it's been the last few years. So if you want to play and join a league that I'm going to have that's tied to this podcast and YouTube station, you need to be available to draft on Saturday, Sunday, Monday of Labor Day weekend. All of the drafts will be Eastern Standard Time. They'll be in the evening. And well, maybe. I mean, we'll see how many people are around. Is anybody available to draft during the day? We can, but I try to realize that Labor Day weekend, generally, traditionally, has been the last getaway for a lot of families and children, or whatever the case. So I really don't want to make it be such a thing that you're going to take away from that. And I don't want you to try to auto draft, because if you try to auto draft in this league, you're not going to make it. You need to participate in the draft. If you don't follow what's going on, you're not going to have a team worth of shit. So the people that want to play in these leagues need to be able to be available to draft. This last year, I filled a couple of leagues late, and I drafted as late as Wednesday night for one league, with the game starting on Thursday the next day. That's a possibility too, other than the fact of depending on how many leagues, because currently I manage about 12 to 15 leagues now. So trying to fit all these in together is going to be a difficult arrangement. And some of my leagues have been long time leagues, and I feel like I owe it to them to make sure we maintain the status quo. My idea for the leagues that are going to be the dying a Detroit Lions fan, no matter how many we have, these will be continual leagues. So if you're in one year, you're going to be invited back the next. And all you got to do is make sure when the season opens up that you click that you're ready to play. And I will send out information about the leagues that are open, sign in now. I'll include messages in regards to the fact that, boom, send me an email, just touch base with me, let me know you're in, your team name, da da da, so that I don't get rid of teams because I haven't heard from somebody, and import new teams, because I want to have a full 12-team league when it comes draft time. So that's pretty much about that. Eastern time zone I mentioned. Oh, also, in drafting 20 to 25 players, 12-team league, you're probably going to be looking at about a 2-hour time commitment to make the draft. So make sure you can kind of hang in there in order to do that. It's a time processing thing. I try to make it as fast as possible, but I don't think I can make it much quicker than 1 minute and 30 seconds per draft, because I've sat there myself and had, boom, my next 2 picks set up, depending upon where I was at, and all of a sudden the person before me picks one of my players, another person's been picked by someone else, and so I'm scrambling to reload my my preferences as to who I want in whatever position. So I really can't see less than 1.5 minutes. So if that means if we got 12 teams, we're looking at minimum of 18 minutes per round times 25 rounds. So you're looking at close to 2 hours. So if you are a legit fantasy player and are going to pay attention to your teams and like to talk a lot of trash, smack talk, make side bets, that kind of a thing, these are the leagues for you. I'll bring this up more in the future, but I wanted to bring it out there now because at least we have the NFL draft that is coming about starting the 23rd. It's going to be different. It's going to be like the old time drafts. We're not going to see the showmanship that we've seen the last few years by taking it to a city. But hopefully the NFL draft will get people thinking about football once again. And we don't even know when it's going to start. We don't know if we're going to have training camps or whatever the case may be. Today they've had the announcement that the Major League Baseball is trying to think about an opportunity of taking all teams, all 30 teams, and taking them to Arizona to sequester every team in a hotel and play their games without fans, with electronic umpires. Who knows? I mean, there's so much that needs to be done yet, and you got to worry about what happens if somebody comes down with the coronavirus in that environment, even though they're locked in. How's the league going to react? What they're going to do? Notre Dame's president today turned around and said that he couldn't see having college football without the fans and experience, or the fan experience. Doesn't make sense to him to do that. You know, we're talking about some unusual times with the coronavirus and everybody trying to react as to how to get back to normal as soon as possible. And who knows, we may not get back to normal as soon as possible. We may not get back to normal, period. We could be looking at suppressed seasons. Um, the NBA is the first one along, and they're still up in the air and said we can't make any decisions until at least May 1st. Um, College football and the NFL, at least we have the idea that they usually don't start college till the end of August, and the NFL won't start until after Labor Day. So we've got 4.5 months to still see what happens. From the things I've seen, the virus seems to be leveling off in hotspot areas. So hopefully we get back to normal in the next 3-4 months. But if not, we'll just play it by ear. So anyways, thanks for listening tonight. Remember, if you're interested in a fantasy team, it's never too early to put your name in with me now with your email address. Remember, give me your name, email address, okay? And if you're sending it to me to my email, if you want to include your phone number, that's great. I will contact everybody that I turn around and receive a message that they're interested, to make sure they know I've got you, you're in the plans, and I'll record you. And as soon as the leagues are open, that I can create new leagues, I will invite you. So you'll be one of the first ones to get there. Again, all of my leagues are customizable. That means you can have like your own little logo for your team, helmet, whatever the case may be. I try to make it as fun as possible, with as many points as possible for people to score. And some of my leagues have been going on for, Christ, 12 years, 13 years now. So people stay in them year to year because we do have fun. We have the camaraderie. We know each other. We shoot the shit. We make little games up in return to in the week, and we trash talk game day. Hell, I end up bringing a second television into my living room so that I can watch the Red Zone channel on one, plus the normal game, which being in Michigan, I'm stuck watching the goddamn Lions blow a game in the last 3 minutes of every game. So it's all going to be good. We're all going to get through this, and hopefully sooner than later. So have a great night. Enjoy yourselves. Continue to stay safe, and let's beat this virus's ass so we can get back to normal. Thank y'all. Have a great night.